The Dodgers and the Blue Jays head to Chavez Ravine, tied up at 1. We'll be getting to all of it on Locked On MLB Game Night.
When that final out is made, you know it's time for Locked On MLB Game Night. All the post-game reactions to every game across the league, every single night, with insights only the hosts at Locked On can provide. Prepare to experience game day reactions like never before. Only on Locked On MLB Game Night. Your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night. I'm your Sunday night host, Brian McCann, alongside my partner and Locked On Braves postcast host, Lindsey Crosby. Lindsey, how are we?
Listen, I am hyped to get 3 games in 3 days in the World Series. It's been a great postseason so far. Let's keep it rolling.
Enjoy it while you can, because it might not last much longer. We'll be getting to that in a second. I got to mention, though, a major difference in the feel of this series. If it could have went one way, but it didn't. They're heading back 1-1. It's going to be really cool to see. Before I get to that, today's show is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app today, create an account, and use code Locked On MLB for $20 off your first purchase. So we mentioned going back to Los Angeles, tied 1-1 after a 5-1 victory for the Dodgers in Game 2 of the World Series. Now, this, I think we can all acknowledge, this series had to go back at a minimum 1-1 for the Blue Jays to have any chance in this series, and we are getting that. I do feel like, though, in my opinion at least, the Blue Jays had to get both at home to give themselves a legitimate chance in this series, and that's not because of the advantage the Dodgers have with the home field. I don't think there is much of an advantage that way. I think everything you saw in Game 2 is why the Dodgers are the prohibited favorite in this series, and probably should be. The starting pitching is elite. There isn't much of a weakness on this Dodger team, and I want to get your opinion on this. Mm-hmm. There is one weakness in this Dodger whole roster, and it is the back end of their bullpen. Their bullpen is not great. And you know what the problem with that is, Lindsey? It doesn't matter. None of their pitchers even let it get to the bullpen. Their starting pitching goes so deep into games, goes long into games. It doesn't really matter who they throw out there in the starting pitching rotation because the bullpen's not going to matter for them because no one's going to appear for the bullpen. They couldn't even get Sasaki into the game if they wanted to. So I just think it's too overwhelming for the Blue Jays, and you saw that in Game 2. You can let the Dodgers, you kind of watch this game thinking, you know what, if the Dodgers hang around and the Blue Jays hang around, the Blue Jays will be able to get to that Dodger bullpen and they'll be able to break through late in this game. It's not even an advantage for the Blue Jays to hang around in this game because the Dodgers are going to find a way to score runs late in this game too. You're getting contributions from the back end of their lineup, the superstars in the front of their lineup. I don't personally see a path for this Blue Jay team. I just think it's too overwhelming for them with what LA throws at you consistently.
See, I think I'm a little bit more, bullish on Toronto's chances because we saw how the plan worked virtually to perfection in Game 1. And the big question for me is 3 through 5. How are you going to, are you closer to what happened in Game 1 or in Game 2? Because obviously Game 2 was best case scenario for LA. You just never have to use the pin at all. Toronto can't really get any offense. Game 1, you saw Blake Snell takes 20 plus pitches to get through the first inning. And they're just, because Toronto doesn't strike out a ton, Game 2 notwithstanding, because they put a ton of balls into play, they just have a way to just sit there and pile on pitch counts onto a guy where you have to use the pin. And when I look at like we're not quite there to preview it yet, but when I look at the matchups for 3 and 4 in a pitching perspective, I don't know if they can replicate what Yamamoto did really well. So we know what Toronto wants to do. Question's going to be, do they have Bo Bichette and the guys that they need to do it? And can they execute it? Because I do agree with you that the bullpen's an issue for LA, but I would argue it's the bullpen in general. It's not necessarily just the back end. It's just about anybody that they go to outside of Sasaki right now. I don't feel like you have a lot of trust in any of those guys. And granted, they're using some starters in the bullpen. I mean, they have Clayton Kershaw working in relief, which is nuts.
How much can you trust him in the month of October, though?
I was about to say, he's not been a postseason guy. Yeah.
I've liked what Sheehan's given them throughout the entire year. He's been really solid for them throughout the year. But I'd agree with you. Their bullpen is not their strength here at all for the Dodgers. The problem is if you're not going to be able to get to it, it's not going to mean anything if that's your only weakness. And, just to mention, too, all those free agent signings that they made in the offseason to improve their bullpen, all of them are not on the World Series roster. They're all out. The Kirby Gates of the world, the Tanner Scotts of the world, they're all out. I just think, especially if you're going to get these kind of performances, let's also not ignore the Blue Jays have wasted their best 2 pitchers. Like Gosman's gone, and I don't think Gosman was great. He wasn't awful, but again, he has to be pretty much perfect for them to have a chance against Yamamoto. And then Savage was great, but again, and he was great in the World Series for sure, but you're expecting a pitcher who's got less than 10 major league starts to continue to pile together elite level starts. And as we see in the postseason, the more you see a particular guy is the better you get against him. Yeah. When you count that with all of the elite level hitters the Dodgers have, like, are you really going to try to convince me that Freddie Freeman is not going to figure out Savage by a 3rd or 4th at bat against him in a week? He's obviously going to figure him out. Like, these are elite level hitters, and you really haven't seen it getting fully going with Freeman yet. Like, not all their guys are even clicking at this point yet.
Yeah.
Well, I just think it's once you can stop or neutralize one part of this Dodger team. Oh, here's another all-star coming up behind.
Yeah. The depth's absurd.
And just like we just, said with this next matchup is going to be Scherzer versus Glasnow, which is insane that Glasnow is your game 3 starter. But if you think that's crazy, your game 4 starter, which has been announced already, is Shohei Ohtani. And then game 5, you're likely going to go, back to another ace. So there's no room. There's no maneuverability. There's no game in the next 5 that they're going to play in this series if it goes the full distance. There's no game where you can look at it as a Blue Jays fan and just say, oh, at least we get that starter where we can get through. Whereas the Dodgers have that. Now, you brought up some numbers before the show. Max Scherzer is starting for the Blue Jays in the next game, and he had a decent playoff start the last game he had, but before that, it wasn't great coming into the postseason. And Max Scherzer is another one of those guys too, like Kershaw, hasn't had that elite level success in the postseason. Now, has had really good postseason starts, but over the last, I'd say pretty much post Washington, Scherzer's postseason statistics have not been terrific. He was not great with the Mets, those postseason appearances that he had. Well, the postseason appearance he had with the Mets. He was not great in that appearance. He was good in the Blue Jay appearance, but not otherworldly elite. And in my opinion, to beat Glasnow, you kind of have to be that, no?
Yeah, I would agree there. So in the 8 postseason appearances for Max Scherzer since leaving Washington, he is 1-3 in 9 appearances. I think 8 of those were starts. He came in relief for the Dodgers in the in the NLDS. But he is 1-3 with a 4.91 ERA. The only good start that he had in that stretch, he had 7 innings of 1-run ball with 1 walk and 10 strikeouts for LA in 2021. Like, outside of that, he's not been good in the postseason.
You're now adding 4 years onto that arm. The velocity is down. He's not the Max Scherzer of old going up against this relentless Dodger team. Like, where is the path in this game particularly? Now we're going to discuss previews of it later on.
Yeah.
But this is more of a sense of just analyzing this Dodger team and how I don't see the route Toronto has into getting themselves. I don't want to say back into the series because they're in the series, but I don't see the route Toronto has in what's the minimum Toronto has to head back to Toronto after game 5 to be able to win this series? You pretty much have to go back up 3-2, right?
I think Toronto has to go up 3-2. Yeah. And I say that knowing that they went back to Toronto down 3-2 to Seattle, but Seattle's a different team than LA is. So
it's 2 very different teams. Yeah.
Yeah. I do think they have to win 2 out of 3 in LA. And here's the thing about it. They have to be virtually perfect in the game plan.
That's the problem.
Yeah, and that's a problem. It's like you saw it work almost to perfection in game 1. You saw it absolutely not work in game 2. My real question there, was that Yamamoto being special? Was that Toronto having a deficiency? And what happens when you try to run that same plan back? You're right. Work deep counts, foul off, fringe hittable pitches, get something in the zone you could drive when it's not Yamamoto on the mound. And I do think that the matchup with Glasnow, what he actually does on the mound, works pretty well for Toronto. The question is, can you then replicate it against Ohtani, and then can you do it against Snell again? And that's where I really think you're probably only going to get one of the 3. And I think that's the big issue for Toronto, is they're going to go back and have to win 2 at home to win the World Series.
I've got a take on game 1 and why the Blue Jays were able to take that game. Plus, the historical aspect of Yamamoto, the actual significance. Let's give the man his due that the $300 million man 1,000% deserves. All that and more on the other side of Locked On MLB Game Night here. Guys, the NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than with FanDuel, the official betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to the fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into same-game parlays for a shot at winning a bigger payout. I'm a huge live bettor on my New York Knicks to come back. Anytime they go down in a game, it's actually a positive for me because I can jump in on the Knicks, get them live, and have one of the more elite teams in all of basketball. That's right. I said that, Hawks fans, Lindsay. To be able to come back and win games. It keeps every game exciting, and especially when your team makes that late game push, nothing is better. So right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com and swing up to play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Lindsay, I teased on the other side before we got back, the historical significance of Yamamoto in this game and what it actually has meant, the way that his starts have gone this postseason. I'll get to that in a second, but first, on game one and why the Blue Jays were able to come in. I think that game has a lot to do with the classic, team has been off for a while, hasn't been in their mojo, and kind of comes out sluggish. I think you saw that from the Dodgers. Now, that game was close for most of the start of it, and then kind of got away from them. The Blue Jays ran away with it and their momentum kind of took over there. It felt like a spot where the Dodgers just hadn't played in a while, were a little sluggish, not really an excuse to be sluggish in a World Series game,
right?
But felt like a spot where the Blue Jays were going to be able to get it. And I did say this before, if the Blue Jays had any chance in the series, it was going to be taking game one. They had to take game one. They got that done. Now, to continue that, I also thought the only chance they had in this series was to win game two and go back to LA up 2-0. They weren't able to do that. But I feel like game one was one of those spots where LA hadn't played in a while, wasn't on the field in a while, had to travel, was winning for their opponent. And you see this all the time in sports. The more you sit in the postseason, it's almost more of a detriment to yourself.
I do think there is something to the idea of not only did you have, a long layoff because you swept the Brewers, but then when you finally got to play, to your point, you had flown across the country to a different country, actually.
Literally, yeah.
Yeah, literally. But you were also having to go up against a really unusual and unique pitcher in Trey Yasavage. I mean, we've talked about him a little bit. We talked about on the preview last week. The actual stuff that he does, the arm angle, the pitch mix and everything, very unique. And a lot of your general preparation can't really help with that. You have to do specific preparation for him. And Toronto gamesmanship this well, too. They didn't announce that he was officially starting game one instead of game two until Toronto was already out of LA and couldn't use their fancy tragic pitching machines to replicate Yasavage. I do think that you also saw the layoff have an effect on Blake Snell when you looked at his command, where he was.
Especially early on.
Yeah. Where he was with the pitches. And so because of that, it was really easy for the Blue Jays, who were already good at not striking out and drawing walks, to really just kind of spit on stuff out of the zone, make Blake Snell come into the zone to attack them. Question's going to be, he would have, I believe, one additional day of rest if he were to start, make game 5 start. Questions for me is going to be, does he have a better ability to draw whiffs in that situation? I do think if he can be better, LA can win that game. The reason that it works so well is LA was off a little bit, combined with the fact that he personally was off. And so they were able to get him out of the game sooner. If Snell goes 7 innings, that probably looks like an LA win, simply because Toronto doesn't have the opportunity to pick on 3 or 4 different lesser options in the LA bullpen. And it's just, it can just be Sasaki pitching 2 innings and you have a win locked in.
Now, the problem with Snell is throughout his career, he's been more of a pick around the zone, locate perfectly kind of guy. Whereas guys like Tyler Glasnow and Shohei Ohtani are more of attackers in the zone, which I don't think lends to Toronto's game plan. You're not going to be able to take a lot of pitches with Ohtani and take a lot of pitches with Glasnow, because they're pumping 102 up in the zone, and they're all throwing for strikes. Plus their breaking ball. It's very hard to get to draw out long at bats because when guys are attacking the zone like that, they're going to make you do things. And maybe that isn't the best strategy against a Vlad Guerrero Jr. And if Bichette was making a big impact in this series. But other than that, if you're going to attack the zone against these Toronto hitters, it's going to really expose that bottom half of that order, not being able to draw walks, not being able to get on base, not being able to do the little things if you're going to attack the zone like that. I want to mention this real quickly because we did bring this up for a second. The impact of Bo Bichette being on this roster. I do feel like for a heart and soul kind of thing and an inspirational kind of thing, it's great. But I think through seeing these first two games, Bo Bichette is clearly not very healthy. He's not confident on the knee because he switched from the sleeve to the brace mid-game. Plus I'm only giving him 2 at-bats, starting him at second base. They feel like they're in a very desperate situation with the Bo Bichette thing. And it feels more like an inspirational, hey, what can you give us? Can you put a barrel to one here and just open up a game really quick? I don't know. I don't think Bo Bichette is fully healthy, and it's hard to imagine him giving a huge impact in this series, to be honest.
Yeah, I do wonder, is 80% of Bo Bichette better than 100% of Isaiah Kiner-Falefa? I do think there is a situation, and they haven't really tried this yet, but I do think there is a situation where you don't have to play IKF, but you could still have Bichette in the lineup, and it requires George Springer to play right field, right? You move Ernie Clement to second, you move Barger down to third. You have a lineup they haven't tried yet. You have a lineup that doesn't include IKF. It includes Bichette, but him not in the field. And I do wonder if that would be a little bit of a difference. But on the Glasnow thing, I want to back up for a second because I took a second to do like kind of the deep dive into what he does as a pitcher and what Toronto does well. Glasnow's, a 4-pitch guy, fastball, slider, curveball, and sinker. And then he uses those lefties and righties. He's not really platoons doesn't care. He uses those 4 pitches in kind of equal amounts. Yeah. But he was one of the worst starting pitchers in baseball at getting Chase out of the zone, right? 22% first percentile in baseball at getting Chase out of the zone. It was kind of a Blake Snell idea of his walk rate was almost 12%. He would throw a pitch out of the zone and you could just take it. And he would rather walk you than give you a hittable pitch. And I do think we saw that approach didn't work really well for Snell in game 1.
But if he's not giving you chaseable pitches and he's just pumping it in the zone, like Glasnow's able to pump it in the zone a lot more, where it feels like Snell is more of a picky kind of guy where he's picking at the zone. Glasnow will attack. I feel like that hurts the Blue Jays more. I think personally, the strategy for going at the Blue Jays is attacking them in the strike zone. Like don't give them the options to chase because we already
play around with it. Yeah.
They're not going to chase. You know what I mean? They're not going to. Nipping at them is not going to do anything. But when it comes to going at them straight in the zone and really only nipping at the zone with the guys like the Guerreros and the Springers that can really hurt you. And Kirk, by the way, who can I just mention real quickly? Has Alejandro Kirk ever made an out in a postseason game?
It doesn't feel like he has.
It feels like every game he's getting a hit in every spot. I just think we're at one of those spots that we're attacking the Blue Jays. I think Glasnow has the advantage of if he can just pump the zone with those pitches. I don't know what the Blue Jays are going to be able to do with him. Whereas Snell is more of a picky guy on the corners where you can kind of, depending on the umpire you get, you can kind of take pitches.
Counterpoint is we know that Springer and Guerrero can hit anything all the time, right?
True.
But you look at a lot of the starters for Toronto, they're all really good at hitting fastballs, with the exception of Andre Jimenez and Bo Bichette. Bo Bichette's actually not a great fastball hitter, but Nathan Lucas, Alejandro Kirk, all of the I keep saying Lucas and not Lucas.
It's not because it's not Lucas.
It's not spelled the same way.
It's Lucas. It is.
Yeah. Dalton Varsho. All of these guys hit four-seam fastballs really well.
Absolutely. Yeah.
The key, honestly, the big key in this game for Tyler Glasnow, it's going to be the curveball, because there's not
in the zone.
Yeah, there's not many of these hitters that do. The best hitter on the team against curveballs is Bo Bichette, but a lot of these guys are barely average against the curveball. That's going to be the weapon for Glasnow, and I trust the Dodgers to understand that and have him throw it a lot more. He usually uses it like 20% of the time. I'm going to say it's his second most used pitch in this game. It's over 30% usage. That's where he's going to get a lot of his whiffs from.
It's a great point. And to be honest with you, I don't know how much Bichette's going to be able to give them. I don't know if he's giving them the full 9 anyway. So it's a really good point to you. On the other side, the historical significance of Yamamoto's start, like we discussed, we'll get into, plus a preview of Game 3 of the 2025 World Series. The NFL season is back, and there's nothing better than being in the stadium surrounded by fans cheering on your team. But let's be honest, getting tickets can be such a hassle. Between the queues, the login screens, and prices jumping at checkout, it can be unbelievably frustrating. And that's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. Game Time is fast, easy, and backed by the Game Time guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best prices. Plus, all the fees are included, so the price you see is the price you pay. I pulled up Game Time and in just a few taps found amazing deals for any of the concerts I go to, games I go to, for great prices. Plus, their zone deals feature a can't miss opportunity where they will pick the section, Game Time picks the seats, and you always save big. Honestly, it's faster, it's cheaper, and it's less stressful than any other way that I've bought tickets before. So download the Game Time app today, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. We discussed earlier Yamamoto and the significance of his start. So Yoshinobu Yamamoto threw his second complete game of the postseason, and it was the second consecutive complete game of the postseason. He's the first pitcher in 25 years to do that. Pretty remarkable to be able to do that in that time span, especially, I think it's smoked at this point on the broadcast. It's almost more impressive to do it now when pitchers don't last long into games. Absolutely incredible stuff out of him. In the last start, 9 innings, 4 hits, 1 run, no walks, 8 strikeouts, 105 pitches thrown, which in 9 innings is unbelievably impressive against this Blue Jay team. 17 swings and misses, 11 groundouts, 3 flyouts. He was incredible. He was everything you could have wanted in that $300 million investment. And just side note, as a Yankee fan, kind of aggravated me they didn't want to go the 350 route with him, because would the $50 million make a difference if he's doing that in the World Series? Probably not. Just to throw that little side note in there.
Yeah.
One thing I want to get to first, just to get your perspective on too. The Dodgers do kind of have a center field problem when it comes to a weakness. Pajez is one of those guys that couldn't hit the red side of a barn. He's been nothing at the plate, and he's not necessarily an elite fielder. Now, you link that in with Justin Dean, who has been a quadruple A player throughout his entire career. I don't know where you go here with center field. Is it more of a platoon thing, or is it kind of one of those, hey, put the better fielder in and just basically count it as an automatic out throughout the game?
I mean, Pajez has been an automatic out. There is another option that we're not really discussing, and it's utility man Hai-Song Kim. They used him 32 starts in the regular season in center field. He hit 280. He doesn't have a lot of power. Mind you, his OPS was like 699, but he can at least make contact, get a chance to get on base, and flip the lineup over to your Ohtani, your Betts, your Freeman. So I don't think that Dean's the answer, simply because, like, and you had some of the stats before we went on air. He's been a quad A guy at best his career, right? A lot of double A, triple A time. Atlanta gave up on him before he went to LA and all that. But Kim can play a good enough center field to get you through the first 7 innings of the game. And then if you need to, at that point, you can then throw in Dean for defense, which they've done like 11 times this season. They like to go when they like to put Dean in center, move Pajez to a corner. You can do something like that with Kim, but everybody says your options are Pajez or Dean. They tried Kim a little bit, and it was at least good enough for them to do it, 30 times. You feel like that could be an option too, because to your point, Pajez is a good enough defender, but we've seen balls drop in front of him. He has a strong arm, but he's been a little bit inaccurate some of his throws this postseason. And I feel like LA, that's a simple change they can make to, if nothing else, get a little more contact in the lineup and give Ohtani and Betts, Freeman a chance to get multi-run hits versus just getting solo shots and things like that.
To your point, though, on the other side, why not go with Kim in the postseason then? Like, what is the hold on them to be able to just start him at center field in the postseason? Because, like you said, it's either a guy who can't, an automatic out, a quadruple A player, or Kim, who they went out and got in free agency and love everything about him analytically. So why not start him in center field?
I think some of it may just be, one, he doesn't have a ton of experience in the majors. right? I mean,
Okay.
he for LA, he
But neither
played
does
in.
Dean.
Yeah. He got like 160 at-bats in the regular season. And so there is a little bit of, is the moment too big for him?
Okay.
And Paul Hayes is the guy that got them there. So I understand the idea of give Paul Hayes the run. I just think you've seen enough now over the course of the postseason where it's clear, like Kim can't be worse than Paul Hayes. And worst case scenario, it's hard to be worse. And worst case scenario, if Kim's defense falls off a cliff, you can always go back to Paul Hayes, or you can throw Dean into the game early for defense. I just don't understand. It feels odd that Dave Roberts has stuck with Paul Hayes this long, and except for the I'm trying to stay loyal to my guy that got here.
I mean, I think too, they're maybe sticking to the fact that Paul Hayes is a better, like this is going to break at some point. The problem is it's getting a little too late for them, and when it comes to this season. Yeah. He did have the second most home runs in the Dodgers this year. So maybe they're hoping that he can run into one. He had 27 homers on the year. So maybe they're hoping that Paul Hayes runs into one. Like he was consistent for them throughout the entire season. So maybe it's got to be that where he's just sticking to the guy that got him here throughout the entire season. And that's what he's going with. But I think you need to make a move at some point coming up here because you can't have an automatic out in this lineup. The only thing I'd say, you can kind of afford it if you're the Dodgers.
You can
right, like there's enough offensive that you're going to be able to supplement the offense a lot more with the top of that order. Like the top of the order should be able to supply enough offense where you can kind of afford the automatic out. But to that point, why not just go with Dean then, who is the better elite fielding player, and just go with the elite defender at that point, who's going to be able to catch everything and just deal with the automatic out at that point. It doesn't. They're in a little bit of trouble when it comes to center field, I think.
Yeah, I do think the flip side of this is we all kind of know that over the course of a series, Ohtani, Betts, Freeman, like they're going to get theirs. They're going to be productive. And the question's, what can you get from really 5 through 9? Will Smith's been fantastic this year too. What can you get through 5 through 9? But I do think if you go to a guy like Kim, being like letting Ohtani, Betts, and Freeman get theirs with another guy on base could potentially be a bigger deal than whatever you might lose defensively from having Kim for 7 innings. So there's multiple ways here. It just feels odd to me that they've gone this long and not made a change. And I wouldn't be like, I think if you make a change, game 3 is where you make it. Like if Paul Hayes starts game 3, he probably starts all of them. I just feel like if you're going to make a change, this is where you make it. Because at this point, Paul Hayes' slump has been the entire postseason, and you've got to figure out something different. And it just feels to me like Kim's the much better option than either the automatic out and Dean, simply because Kim's kind of in the middle. He can give you something offensively, whereas Dean is, in essence, an automatic out.
Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, games 3, 4, and 5, all on Fox, 8 p.m. Eastern start time for them. Quickly, Lindsay, who do you like? Does this series get back to Toronto or no?
Yes, it gets back to Toronto. I think LA is up 3-2 when it goes back to Toronto. I had Dodgers in 6 originally. The Jays really impressed me in game 1. They really didn't impress me in game 2. I still have 3-2 LA when it goes back to Toronto. I still have Dodgers in 6.
I don't hate that. I don't love it either, though. I think the series does not get back to Toronto. I don't think it crosses the border. I think we stay in Los Angeles. Dodgers celebrate in game 5 on their home field. I just think it's too overwhelming at this point. You're going with 3 aces in games 3, 4, and 5. I don't see a route for Toronto. The only problem that we were able to highlight in this last half hour of Showtime was Dodgers in center field. The back end of their bullpen, sure, but we even highlighted 2 guys that are going to be good in the back end of their bullpen. I don't see room for this Blue Jays team to be able to score runs and be able to keep up with Los Angeles. I think Los Angeles is deeper than them, has the depth, has the pitching. I don't think there's a lot of room here for Toronto, and I don't think it goes back home for them.
And I don't necessarily know if I trust Shane Bieber and Max Scherzer to keep up with Glasnow and Ohtani. I think that's another issue that we didn't really get to in the 30 minutes. Mm-hmm. But I don't know if at this stage in their careers, a diminished Scherzer, a Bieber still coming off injury, if they can keep up from a stuff perspective, from a run prevention perspective with Glasnow and Ohtani. And so Toronto would have to be making late game comebacks. And I just don't know if they're going to be able to do that unless they get 5 innings against the LA bullpen.
Agreed completely. So Lindsay's got them going back, but ending in 6, and I've got it not going back to Toronto. Thank you for joining us for this episode. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share everywhere you see Locked On MLB Game Night. We hope you'll come back and visit us next time on MLB Game Night. Every game, every night.